So thank you everyone who joined tonight and spending your night with us. This is very exciting. We've never done a self-publishing webinar before, but we have learned so much over the last 3 years, and we just felt like we had all this knowledge, and we're so focused on, community and wanting to get the best stories out there. And I think there's a lot of great writers out there who maybe don't have the tools or don't know too much about self-publishing. So hopefully we can be a good resource for you tonight and to introduce the world of self-publishing to you. A few things, if everyone could keep themselves on mute, just because we are recording this, so we want to make sure the sound comes through clear and you can hear myself, Ashini, and Haley. We are going to do a question and answer at the end, so if you have questions throughout, feel free to put them in the chat, but you can also save it for the end and we'll have more of a conversation about it. And we do want to try to get all your questions answered to the best of our ability. So feel free to ask questions again throughout or at the end. And we'll also be sharing the recording and a workbook and a self-publishing checklist with you at the end. So you'll get a lot of information tonight, but don't worry, you can always revisit these resources and see what's best for you and see different ways that you can use this and hopefully get some stories out there. So as an introduction, we are at Dandelion Revolution Press. My name is Paige Gardner. I am one of the co-founders and the editors. So I've been involved since the beginning, since those first talks of starting a press and feeling like I had absolutely no idea how to do that. And here I am helping lead this self-publishing webinar. So it's been a crazy journey, but I'm super excited to share more with you.
Nice. So I'm Haley Frericks. I'm also a co-founder and editor at Dandelion. And it's been such an honor to work with wonderful women and work with authors and publish their stories. So it's definitely been a learning curve the past 3 years. Like Paige was saying, we have so much to offer. And I think this is really just gonna be the first in a long journey towards self-publishing for everybody. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for joining. My name is Ashini Desai, and I'm one of the other co-founders, co-editors of Dandelion Revolution Press. And I'll just kind of get into our story about how we started this. Actually, yeah, these are the topics of what we're going to be running through. We're going to go through our just how we started, what was our incentive and motivation for becoming a self-publishing press. I'm going to introduce you to the different platforms that are available and really dive into the ones that we used in our experiences with that. Haley will also go into the editing, design, and formatting because she really led that effort. And so she knows that side really well, and she can really explain that. Marketing and self-publishing, right for you, that is going to be Paige. She's going to pick that up because she's our social media genius. And so she can really go into all of that. And then at the end, we'll have a live Q&A. So if you feel free to add your questions in the chat and or just wait till the end and then we can answer them. Actually, what I was going to do was one of our first, just as a question in the chat, while I'm explaining this, I just wanted to get from everyone, what kind of work do you write, or what are you interested in publishing? So I'll leave that with you to add to the chat. As far as our story goes, can we go to the next slide? Yeah. So Bethany, Haley, and Paige and I started this, and Scarlett just is joining our team this year. We started we were just 4 writer friends we met through the Bucks County writing group, and we had seen other members in our group do some publishing. They published an anthology of short stories, and we were really interested in doing that. And we just found our focus was going to be women's voices, because we wrote a lot of really unique stories and we weren't sure where we would get this published. And so it looked like we were going to have to take it in our own hands and get this published as we could. To the next slide. So why did we choose to self-publish? Yeah, the first one was our stories were so unique. If you've seen any of our anthologies, our books, yeah, I was going to just hold up are not quite as you were told. is our first book, and our stories are multi-genre. We have writers who do suspense, realistic fiction, fantasy, all of that. But, we have a theme of like strong female characters. So just that compilation is really hard to sell to any other traditional publisher. So, we knew what we wanted to publish. So that was what we took on ourselves. And as I mentioned, we had some writer friends who did it themselves. So we really found talking to people was the best thing. We have a friend who has, she's supporting herself and her family by writing ebook series on Amazon. And so she told us, gave us some insight into that. There was another writer friend who self-published, and he was advising us how to, do some promotion and get books out. So really the collective is what really helped us. Like they inspired us, and we said, yeah, I think we can do this. Even though we have no experience in publishing, we all come from different backgrounds. We have experience in editing, just very minor, but this is not our thing. So this has been a journey for us of learning, as we're going. So yeah, so it wasn't very, we had a lot of hurdles. The first thing was that our first book we decided in September 2019 to launch the idea with the intention of publishing our first book March 8th, International Women's Day. And unfortunately, no one saw it coming, and that the whole world was going to shut down on March 12th. And so that just really kind of, we just had, like everybody, we were just like in shock, and we had to cancel our book readings, our launch parties, all of the different kind of things that we were planning to do, all just had to get on the side. But what we learned from that was really that we had to rely on social media, and we built a lot of, built our social media presence, started a real community, and, just to get our books out. So we were just trying different things that way. I think as new publishers, we did make rookie mistakes. I kind of call them that because, we didn't proof, like there's 4 of us, and we were proofing like till our eyes were crossed, but still we missed things. And it's until you see a sample copy, you see different things like, oh, a line has been copy pasted into 2 places or something. We also underestimated the delivery time for proofs from the publishers. Like we used Amazon for one book, and we used Ingram Sparks for the second book. So just the way they work, both of them were different. So we didn't get our books in time, and we were kind of getting anxious because we had this launch date that we were publicizing. So some things there. We underestimated the cost for postage. We had to, for all these proof samples and getting different books out to people, and especially to reviewers, so that was something else we realized later. Like, okay, there was better ways we could do it than what we did, like, actually go through the websites to do that. And and even through the reviewers, we had sent books to some reviewers, but we didn't get the feedback or the promotion that we expected. So there's some things that we would do differently now, when we have that. And we have some guidelines in that workbook too, with some links to that. So one of the things was in 2020 we launched our first book. And then since we were all locked down, we said, let's do a second book. And so we decided to put out The Secrets We Keep. And so we were collecting all the work for that. And the first book, we had actually done the artwork ourselves. And Haley's holding up the books. So the first book we did the artwork ourselves. But then the second one, we couldn't, like that's what I said, it was lightning striking twice. Or like how in the middle of everything, we really wanted to focus on our editorial side rather than the designing of the art. So we commissioned an artist to do this for us. And that's something else we're going to talk about. It's just like the outsourcing of different tasks, that it's okay to do that you don't have to do everything yourself. But so that was something that, we learned from that too, that is something we should do. Okay, intro to self-publishing platforms. So yeah, so there's okay, why self-publish? So the benefits is the global distribution of the work. So you don't have to schlep around to different bookstores, and we were really delighted to see like our books, when you get the sales report and you see that it's in Canada and Australia and different parts of the world that people have found our books. So that outreach is really great. You also have full rights and access to manage your own content. So if you do need to change something, you can do that on your own, and it's going out. You have that total control over your creative efforts. Because reduce excess inventory with print on demand. This is what I love about this, is that when somebody's going to order your book, they are going to Amazon, and that book is going to be sent directly to them. They are, we're not dealing with like stacks of books. I've talked to other authors in the past who have books in their basement that they never sold. So this is something that we're not dealing with at all. And because we're working through, the distributor, through the online vendors, like, all of the shipping, payments, return processing, it's all managed. So even if somebody got, if they want to return the book, they can just kind of work through the system on that. And we get, the direct royalties and payments. I'll get into a little bit about that, about how it's structured. But yeah, I mean, that's a benefit. You have promotions and author pages on Amazon and on Goodreads and all these other places that you can really promote yourself. And this is also the best time to do it. There's so much out there. Like, I don't even think 10 years ago we could have done this because the technology wasn't there. And they have really amazing tutorials and templates. So I know the Amazon site, KDP, is, they have videos, they have downloads you can do, and they have so much information there just to kind of help guide you through the process. So I think having that just makes it so much easier for someone new to get into it. Okay. So this is just a handful of the platforms that are out there. As for us, we had used Ingram Spark for our second book and Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing, which is called KDP, for our first book. And so that's our experience, but we just wanted to put this list out there that, if you're interested, you can keep looking and seeing if any of these other options are better for you and, the kind of work you want to do. I do have a message out there that, watch out for vanity or subsidy press distribution services. So what that means is that, if they say, yes, we will publish your book if you pay us, $100 for this and another $500 for something else. So like you end up paying them to do the work, and it's like another type of publisher, but it really doesn't help the author as far as, all the benefits that I just discussed before. So it's really important to do your research, look for reviews, look for feedback. And again, we went with the more established mainstream platforms. Okay, this is a snapshot of, and again, these were the only two that we used. So this is just our experience on this. So with KDP, you can upload your manuscript up there, and there's no fee for it. And that was where we were surprised with Ingram Spark. There was like a $50 per title per upload. So we really had to make sure our book was published, was proofed and perfect before, we uploaded it for $50. And then there's another fee for a manuscript update. So this is just a little bit more push on you to kind of make sure your work is clean before you actually upload it. With Kindle, we found the really good support. They had, I know in the beginning we had some questions. We got like when we tried to upload files, it was off by millimeters, and we were trying to get some support on that. So we found it really helpful. Ingram Sparks, it was kind of weird, like even for other issues that we had, they were really slow to respond. I mean, and we were really surprised with them. Like, so when we were asking for just different questions, it took a long time for them to come back to us. So that was kind of a, one other mark against them. But we actually joined the Ingram Spark Facebook community. And so there's a lot of other writers, and you can, post questions and get feedback. And so, yeah, so there's a stronger community for it. So even if their technical support team is not always available, at least, there's other people you can rely on. The let me see, pre-order ebooks only on Kindle, and then the Ingram Sparks lets your readers and audience pre-order the print and the ebook. So as soon as it launches, they'll be able to have that. Kindle Direct, this is the biggest thing for us. I think that what we found was that with our first book, it was only on Amazon. So that was it. We were like, you have to direct everybody to Amazon. With Ingram Spark, it's on Amazon as well as like 40,000 other retailers. So they have indie bookstores, they have online chains, they have you can go to target.com and walmart.com and you can find your book there, which was exciting. And so having your books out in so many more locations is really a plus, especially for people who don't, if they don't want to support Amazon and they'd rather support their indie bookstore, then they could find your book on their site. And ISBN codes are provided by both of them. And when you upload your book, you'll have that. So our thoughts were KDP might be right for you if you are targeting in the US. We did see a couple of things, like some of the internationally, you could get an ebook, but the print books aren't always available, depends on the country and things like that. KDP was good for our budget, if you can't keep uploading things. But if you plan to publish frequently, like a book series, and you have a series of ebooks, then this is perfect for you. And you can, make some edit. Oh, that our writer friend had said before, she would get notes from her readers if there was a typo or something, and then so she can quickly go in and fix it and keep moving. And that works with the ebooks and Kindle Select. Kindle Select, there's some write-ups on that. It's a specific program where you do get higher royalties on your books, but you have to make sure that your book is only not available on any other outlet except for Kindle. And like I said, they have easy to use templates and instructions. So for Ingram Spark, we were excited with this one because they do produce hardcovers as well as paperback and ebooks. We have a wide reach of the distribution sites, like I mentioned. And if you're able to financially manage the frequent uploads of the new books and versions. I just want to mention too, the quality of these two books are really great. I mean, we chose like a matte cover for both of them. And so I think they came out, both sites came out really beautiful, and we didn't have any concerns about the quality from either site. Okay, so this is just a snapshot, and when you do your own book, you would go through the Kindle website to kind of come up with your pricing. It really starts with your number of pages, and then and then it kind of works through how much royalty it would work out. And what they do is they usually send it, oh, I wish I wrote this down. Like, I think it's about like 90 days after it's published that you receive your first payment. So you're not going to get paid right away. And with Ingram Sparks, I know we published in March and we didn't get paid till July. Again, it's because they have all those distributors that they have. So they're really compiling all that information. So it takes them some time to get everything together. And so, yeah, this is the calculator on the Ingram side. And again, it's doing your selecting based on your book size, your number of pages, the kind of the binding, and whether it is what your print is going to look like. So yeah, so that those are the calculators that they have there. Oh, what's great is that you can get sample reports. So this is just a sample of what's on the KDP site, that you can see where, for the month or whatever time period. So they have a really nice dashboard where you can run your reports, you can export them into Excel and, play with them there if you want to do that too. Yeah, so here's a sample of the reports they have on the Amazon site. So you can see, you can see all the sales, and they don't count anything until the book has actually left their premises. So it's, even if somebody ordered, on February 1st, if it doesn't leave until like February 7th, that's the date that it gets counted as a sale. And I was just gonna say, Amazon has the same, not Amazon, Ingram Sparks has the same similar reports, and they'll just email it to you. They don't have the dashboard like this. But yeah, like I said, I think it's probably because they have so many distributors, it takes some time to compile it all. So yeah, so you have your reporting you can also get. Okay. All right, go ahead, Haley.
Alrighty, thanks, Sashini. Guys, if you have questions, make sure to leave them in the chat. And I'm going to get into a little bit more of the technical aspects of the self-publishing process, what you might have to do yourself, or if you're going to decide to hire somebody else to do it for you. So have you ever read a book with errors? Does anybody? Not a lot of people are on video, but yeah, it stops you in your tracks, right? It's distracting. So editing is a really important process of publishing a book. And when you're doing it yourself, there's a lot of things you should keep in mind. So there are 4 steps of editing. The first is developmental edits. Those are the big picture edits, where you're moving plot items around, developing character arcs. This is it's important to do your edits in the right step. So you don't want to do nitty-gritty grammar edits before you're doing big changes, because you might delete a scene altogether. So you've just done extra work for yourself. So the first step of editing is really helpful if you have reader or writer friends that can read your manuscript and give you those big picture changes. Like this didn't make sense, there's a plot hole. So there's a lot of resources out there for developmental edits, but everyone that's a writer is usually a reader, so they can know reading a good story is like. Step 2 of editing is line edits. So this is kind of, as it says, it's by the line. So once all those big changes are made, once you've done all the moving around of pieces, this is when you can focus on the sentence and the paragraph level. So you're adjusting pacing, tone, and momentum. Are you slowing something down, speeding it up, rearranging the way a sentence functions? This step is probably one of my favorites because you're kind of getting into the style of things a little bit more. So the next step of editing is copy edits. This is where you're getting down to fixing those typos, those grammatical changes, and continuity errors. So if the character is wearing a green skirt, she should be wearing a green skirt at the end of the chapter, not a blue skirt, stuff like that. So those are things you need to keep in mind. It's probably important to hire an editor for something like copy edits. You need an outside pair of eyes to really catch things that you're too familiar with the manuscript. So this is one of those things where having a good editor with line edits and or copy edits is going to really help you in the long run and really going to like present a professional book. So step 4 of editing is proofreading, which it's not really editing, but I'm leaving it in here anyway, because this is something that is maybe like you can see it as a sort of like editing, but has less to do with like grammar and punctuation and more to do with this is the final stage. So you should be checking not just for extra spaces and extra periods, but also how the format looks, how the layout is functioning, are there extra pages, are the margins, all those really like visual things that need to be fixed. So proofreading stage 4 is obviously really important. If you have a proof copy of your book, it's way easier to catch things on the page. And that is kind of what step 4 is about, is proofreading the final version. So things to keep in mind when you're editing is be consistent with changes. So we are lucky enough to have a team of editors, but that means we have to discuss a lot of the changes and then be consistent. So we had to talk about how are we going to format foreign language? Are we going to like italicize it? Are we going to just leave it as is? So that's something that you need to decide and then keep it consistent throughout. So if you're going to italicize foreign language in the first chapter, you're going to have to do it throughout. Or you're going to italicize a flashback, for instance. So all of those things, you just have to be consistent with the changes. Another thing, be aware of copyrighted material. So things like song lyrics, you cannot just verbatim copy and paste a song into your manuscript unless you have special permissions or if it's in the public domain, all those type of things. So, best to just keep in mind some copyrighted material that you might get hung up on. And like I said, for proofreading, things are easier to catch on the page. So even if you are copy editing, it might be worth it to go to like an office store and get your like manuscript printed just on regular like 8.5 by 11 paper, because reading it on the computer, you're seeing it all the time, you're so familiar with it, putting it in a different format might really help you. So things are definitely easier to catch on the page. And this kind of brings us into the design and formatting. So I have done the formatting for both of the books. So the formatting is kind of like the typography on the page as you see it. So how you're laying out the internal text. So if you want to go to the next. When you're starting to put the format together, you're going to have to create the front matter for the book. So you can't just copy and paste your manuscript into Word. You're going to have to create the front matter. So I'm going to be going over kind of a lot of jargon in the next like design formatting space here, but in our workbook and self-publishing checklist, there's going to be like a little bit of a glossary. So if you forget what this is or whatever, there's going to be a self-publishing checklist. So that has like the stages of editing. the stages of formatting. So all of that is in the workbook that's to come after this. So don't be frightened by all of this like nitty gritty information. So book content, when you're formatting, create the front matter. So the title page, the copyright page, a table of contents, a dedication. This also goes for the back matter. So if you have a biography, for instance, or an acknowledgements page. We chose to add content warnings into our books. So that's something that you could add if you would like. And then just generally, you're going to have to create a separate file for print and ebooks. What I did when I was creating the typography is I was looking at physical copies of books and seeing the way they were laid out. So for example, like where the chapter, like, you know, number is, the title, like the font, how big the font is, all of that kind of stuff was something that I kept in mind. So you can model yours after that. This is just a little snapshot of our print and our ebook version of the table of contents. So on the left, it's a little bit more, everything is more complicated in the print version because it has to, you know, fit a certain size. So, and there's just a little bit more, right? We have the title of the story and the author, because we publish anthologies, as well as the page number. As opposed to the ebook, it just has the story title. But when you open an ebook version, like on your Kindle or your Kobo, it has a link, right? So, you know, if you read a lot of ebooks, you get that table of contents and there's like that blue link, so you can jump to a story, jump to a chapter. So that is something to keep in mind. You're going to have to generate that for an ebook version, which I'm going to get to how to do that in the steps of formatting. So the first is to compile your manuscript or your words into a word processor. These are what they're meant for. So Word, Microsoft Word, and Pages by Mac, they're like the same thing. They're word processors. They're meant for this task. So that is what they are. I would avoid using Google Docs. It doesn't have enough features to truly create a professional print or ebook version. Ebook maybe, but print for sure you need Word or Pages. So the next step is to set the page size, right? So we chose to have a 6x9 book. And there's just a handy dandy bleed chart that you can find. This one I pulled from Ingram Spark. It's really handy. The bleed, right? So the book itself is 6x9, but the page size is set to 6.12 by 9 1/4. And this is because they're going to be, right, they, you know, print the book and then they're trimming it. So anything that goes outside of the lines is going to be trimmed. So that's why they just have that bleed. Step 3 is to set the margins, right? Everything is usually set to 1 to 1 to 1 inch all the way around. But for print, you set the outside a little bit less and the inside is more. That leaves room for the gutter, as they call it, because like a 1/4 inch, right, is taken up by the binding of the book. So when you open a book, it looks like there's 0.75 on this side and 0.75 in the center, or 0.5, I should say, because of the bleed. It just is a little bit confusing, but you can just kind of follow like a set template like this, where I just, you know, 1 inch and then 0.75 on the outside. Step 4 is to create sections between chapters, which might be a little bit confusing. This is a screenshot on the right side of the screen for Mac Pages. It's called a section break. So if you go to the next slide, this is a screenshot of the print formatting that I have on Pages. And you can see on the left, the section is the story or the chapter. So from 11 to 21 is its own section. So the section matters because you can have different headings in those different sections. So if you can see, the circle I have is A Mother's Curse. So we, have different stories for each chapter as opposed to chapter titles. So on the left, we have The Secrets We Keep as the header, but we wanted the header to be different in every section. So that's why there's breaks or section breaks for each chapter, essentially. The next step is to make your chapters a heading. So again, this is just kind of confusing unless you're like, oh yeah, I see what you're saying here. I have a screenshot of Word, right? When it has normal text, no spacing, heading, heading to, title, those automatic things that you can click as your text. So if you make your chapter a heading, right, that means later on you can generate a table of contents with your headings. So most people have maybe done this in an academic paper or something, but if not, that's kind of what those specified texts are for. So having a heading specifically makes sure that you can track it. So on the right side is just a snapshot of Pages, which I've been using Pages, and I renamed it from heading 1, heading 2, heading 3 to subtitle chapter, because that's what we use. Step 6 is to justify the text. So that just means that the text is going to both margins. So it's even as opposed to left justified or right justified or center. It is just straight up justified. So that both the words stretch to both margins. Something else you can do to make your formatting look a little bit more professional is to add a drop cap, which I've circled there. That's what a drop cap is. It's just a big letter at the start of your chapter. The first letter of the first paragraph, the first sentence, gives it a nice little professional look there. Something you can do. And then the last is to insert the page numbers and headers. So if you go to the next slide, you can see another screenshot of The Secrets We Keep, story number 2, chapter 2. We have, again, we put our page numbers on the bottom. You can choose to put them at the top or the bottom. We put them at the bottom in the center. But if you notice, there's no page number on the title page. So on chapter 2 at the bottom, there's no page number, which is normal for print manuscripts to have that, which again makes having a section break or sections important, because the first page of a section doesn't have a page number as opposed to the rest of the section. Okay, so formatting of ebooks is a lot less than that. You basically don't really need all of that much. What I do is we have this print version, the final print version, and then I'll copy it to make I'll just, file, save as, ebook version, right? And the ebook version, you really just need a bare bones, chapter title, no drop cap, no headings, no page numbers. You just need the text. But you're going to need the headers or the chapter type, not the headers where it has not these, but yeah, the chapter titles you'll need. And then you'll save that as an EPUB version. So not a PDF or anything, but as an EPUB, which is what Kindle, Kobo, all those ones use as an EPUB. which means, for those that read ebooks a lot, right, you can change the font, you can change the size of the text, right? It just is the bare bones text, because that's what matters, right? Is the text on it. So they just need the basic text there for the ebook version. So now into cover design, which is very fun. A lot of people's favorite, because who has ever judged a book by its cover? Like, come on. And have you ever bought a book by its cover? Like, let us know in the comments which book it was, because there are some memorable book covers out there. So if you can remember which book you bought by its cover, I'd love to know. I love this kind of stuff. So for cover design, you obviously need a front, a back, and a spine, and then the blurb on the back. So the spine is dependent on your final page count. So you can start designing a book cover while you're editing, while, just thinking about it. But the cover, you're not going to be able to fully create it until you have the width of that spine, and you need the final page count for that. Just a design tip, no more than 2 to 3 fonts should be used on the cover. My rule is no more than 2 on a single face, but that is just me. You don't want to distract too much. So both with Kindle and with Ingram, they have cover design templates. So all you have to do is you put in the size of your book and how many pages it is, and it'll come up with this PDF template. So here is the template that was generated for The Secrets We Keep. And you can see our spine width was like 0.41 inches. So that's what we were working with. And you can see that like template that they gave you. The pink is the safe area, and that blue again is the bleed. So in my pages document, I set the size of the document, the page, to 12.68 by 9.25, right? So you have a quarter of bleed for every side. So 0.125 inches, top, bottom, sides. That's what the size of bleed is. And so this is our full spread of our cover, which is what you have to upload either to both Amazon and to Ingram, both platforms that we used. You have to do a full spread like this. You can't just upload the front and the back. You have to upload a full PDF of the size with all the text. So that is something that can be a little overwhelming for people. Can you outsource this? The answer is yes. We definitely have some suggestions in our workbook. When you're working with artists or contractors, be clear on expectations. What do you want? What do you need? And honestly, have a contract. That's the professional thing to do. We did, like Ashini was saying, we did the art for not quite as you were told ourselves, but for The Secrets We Keep, we outsourced the art. So we did sort of a partial outsourcing where instead of hiring someone to do the entire cover, we hired them to do the art, and then we put the art with the text in a pages document and like moved it around ourselves and overlaid the text and picked the font and all that kind of stuff. So that is something that you can do if you want to hire an artist and then do the text yourself. That is definitely something that we have done. Alrighty, and that's all for the editing, formatting, and design. A lot of jargon, just look out for that workbook after this.
All right, so we are going to move on to marketing. And I first just want to ask the question, think of the last book that you read. How did you find out about this book? How did you decide this was the book you're going to read? I'm going to pull up the chat. I don't know if you can see the chat when I pull it up or not, but drop that book or drop that in the chat. How did you find out about this? TikTok, it's very accurate. For the one that I'm reading right now, I think I found out about it first on Twitter. Podcast, really great. I love a good podcast recommendation. Um, I also have a lot of word of mouth, of course. Charlotte is reading the first DRP book, so that was a word of mouth. It's not very often that you know the editors of a book, so appreciate you reading that, Charlotte. Twitter, yeah, Twitter has such a huge literary community. So really what I'm getting from these responses is that you're finding out a lot of these books from online, maybe from being grabbed from a cover. John said that he saw it in the library. Some other books he got used on Amazon or Better World Books. So yeah, there's so many ways that marketing is done in today's world. And really, this can be a very overwhelming thing for people. They don't want to market their book, but it is a reality for self-publishing. And really the only bad kind of marketing you can find is no marketing. So even if one of these things jumps out at you, then that's the thing you're going to do. But I would say try to focus on a few different ways to market yourself, but don't go overboard. You really don't have to spend all day, every day pushing your book. Just getting your name out there and your book out there in some way will help you. So the first thing that you should really think about, and I don't want you to think about it when you're writing your book, I want you to think about it when you're getting ready to publish your book, is focus on your audience. Who do you want to read this book? And for DRP, we have a mission statement. We are a publisher of women's fiction. That's always been what we've been about. But we also have the statement of proving that women can be every bit as dynamic in fiction as they are in real life. And that mission statement is what we hold to when we are reading stories that and deciding if we want to publish it. We ask ourselves, does this prove that women are as dynamic in fiction as they are in real life? And that just keeps our audience in mind as well, because we are writing and publishing for audiences who want to read those kind of stories. So when you think about marketing, you want to think about those audiences. Who are the people who are reading women's fiction? Who are the people who want dynamic female characters? Who are the people that want to read about them? And all of our marketing goes with them in mind. And this screenshot is just from the very top of our website. So right away, when you go to our website, you know what our mission is and you know what kind of books that we publish. There are multiple ways to promote yourself. And like I said, don't do all of these, you will wear yourself out. So really just focus on which ones speak to you and then lean into that. An author website is a great idea because it is a lot of work up front, but then once you have it set up, it basically just runs itself. People can see it in bios and go check it out. And you can really have great key links in there. So you can have a blog maybe that you just post to every once in a while, or a really consistent blog. You can also have social media links on your author profile so people can get in contact with you in multiple different ways. And then of course, once you start publishing, you can have all those links there as well. So you can have a link to all the books you've published, even literary journals that you've been published in, anthologies that you've been published in, definitely put those on your website. The website is just a great way to promote you and that you can just kind of tell people when you're talking to them and mentioning that you're an author, you can send them your website. Social media, obviously in this world, social media is something that is very prevalent and some people don't like it and some people really don't want to be on it. And I think that's fine as long as your audience is also those kind of people. But if you're writing to audiences that are on social media, then you are missing a really big opportunity. And I'll go a little bit further into social media in future slides because there are so many different platforms, and even in those platforms are different audiences. But that is a great way to just consistently get your name out there and be in contact with your audience, be talking with your audience. It's really a great way to actually connect with people if you use it right. In-person events, this is the saddest thing for us because we did publish 5 days before the world shut down. But thankfully in the last year, we've been able to hold some in-person events safely. And we have found a lot of success with this. So in-person events can range from having readings to having a booth at like an arts fair or something like that. And it's been really fun to connect with the community in that way. Of course, with like readings, you're promoting your authors and you're getting the word out with that. But with in-person events, you can go the traditional route and do just book fairs because you know, hey, my audience is readers and there's going to be readers here. But what we have really found success with is community fairs and arts fairs. And at first I was really hesitant to do like a craft fair because I was like, I don't know if this really qualifies as a craft, but we found that the people who go to craft fairs are very locally minded. They come with money because they are ready to buy gifts for people. And they come really excited to talk to artists. So in those situations, we are often the only indie press there. And so people are very excited. A lot of them are either saying like, I love reading, or they say, I have, a daughter, sister, mother, friend who loves reading and would love your books. So it's a really great way to connect with people with in-person events. And newsletters are also an option to connect with people. Think about if you were doing a newsletter as you're writing your book and you're building your newsletter, you're just sending out updates. Hey guys, I'm working on this chapter, I'm doing this. And then those people on your newsletter follow you all the way to your last step of publishing your book. They are absolutely going to support you. They're going to be so excited to share your posts. They're going to be so excited to buy your book and take pictures with your book because they feel like you are a friend. And hopefully you are a friend at that point. They feel that connection to you. They see you in their inbox. They're super excited to see your name on the cover. For them, they're a part of it as much as you are. So a newsletter is another good way to just kind of build your audience, build your crowd, and you're a writer anyway, so it's a great way to procrastinate writing by writing in a different way. Promotional materials. So for those who joined like right at the beginning of this, we did mention our friend Jim and how he published a book, Eggplant Emoji. And what he did for promotional materials, first off, he made a beautiful cover and he put that on flyers all around town. And people actually saw the flyers and loved the flyers so much that they, reached out to figure out what it was all about. But he also bought a giant eggplant costume and wore it around town. And that counts as promotional materials. That's garnering interest. People are talking about the eggplant walking down the street. So you can get creative in that way, but promotional materials can also be stickers, they can be tote bags, a huge range of it. So if that's something that's in your budget, you can make that happen. But even if you have a Cricut or a friend who has a Cricut, then you can make stickers and merchandise really cheaply. So that's another option as well. And then engage with creators who share audiences. So I think Nico in the chat said that she found out from her last book on a podcast. So that's a really cool thing. You can connect with podcasts that have similar audiences to you. So for DRP specifically, we would want to connect with audiences who are speaking to either writers or speaking to like feminist audience or very like women centric. These are all something that share similar audiences to us. And then just outreach to local bookstores as well. I think the community is always excited to support local artists because sure, like #1 on New York Times, that's great to buy that book and support that book. But as I get older, I think I appreciate it even more how nice it is to support someone who lives in your community and is working really hard and who's your neighbor. So local bookstores will do like readings, or they'll often have like a local author shelf or something like that. So if you can get on that shelf, that's a way to connect with those people. And so there is a difference in social media platforms. And if you're not a social media person right now, just tune this out for like 2 minutes because it's a lot to learn if you're really not in the world already. With Instagram, this is a screenshot of our grid. So if you go to our profile, this is what you would see. And I've learned a lot with Instagram the last few years that I did not know before, but for us, we're focusing now on trying to make a very aesthetically pleasing grid. So when you go to our profile, you're like, look at that. And so how we've been doing that is you can kind of see there's like 3 different posts that we do. And so one is just like pretty flowers and nature posts. One has quotes from famous women, famous artists, famous activists, and then one has different artwork, and those are all from women artists. So again, this ties into our mission statement that women are dynamic, women are worth supporting. And if you go to a profile, hopefully you feel that. And so that's a way for us to connect with people on Instagram who have that same mission and that same focus. So Instagram can be really fun with that. And it also has 24-hour stories. So it's a really great way to just like throw up videos, like, hey, I'm writing today, like, let's talk while I'm doing that, and kind of like peel back the curtain and see how the writing process is. Another great way to connect with your audience. Facebook, of course, is very popular with like family and friends. So if you want to build that community, encourage your family and friends to share your Facebook posts and all of that and share your journey there. TikTok, Haley said she found out about her last book on TikTok, and TikTok has obviously blown up in the last 2-3 years. And there is like a book talk. Now, this is something that you kind of have to be like on TikTok and be following to know the trends. But if you're able to invest that time and utilize that, then you can really grow your numbers and grow a community there. And then Twitter, I think I said that I found my last book on Twitter, and Natalie did too, but Twitter has a huge literary community, like massive. And of course, you kind of pick and choose who you follow. So you have to follow people in that community to see it. But there are always people talking about submissions and literary journals and what stories really affected them. So definitely has a lot of readers on Twitter. So again, that's another option. I wouldn't say go on all 4 of these platforms and be posting daily, because that's pretty much a full-time job, maybe even more than a full-time job. So find 1 or 2 that you think you can invest in. And a tip to make it all easier is follow similar accounts whose profiles you admire. They'll give you ideas, they'll give you inspiration a lot, like TikTok and Instagram do trends, so you can kind of jump in on those trends. But consistency is very important. You want to constantly be on people's feet so that they're like, oh yeah, like there's that indie press. Oh yeah, there they are again. Oh yeah, I was going to submit to them. I'll do that now. So you kind of have to keep being in people's vision. And then there are different ways to advertise yourself, like Amazon ads or even ads on Facebook. DRP hasn't done this yet, to be transparent, but it's an option for sure. And some people do go this way. So that's something to look into as well. And there's a lot of resources online if you were thinking about that. And lastly, we do want to round the webinar out with asking the question, is self-publishing right for you? So you obviously showed up to this webinar, you have an interest in it. And so let's figure out if it's true, if it's the right path for you. You have to find your why. You have to figure out why you would do all this work, because obviously it is a lot of work. And if you're doing it just because you want to go to #1 on the bestseller list, then maybe that's not the best why, because you have to have a why that really speaks to you, that makes you wake up. It's probably the same why that makes you sit down at your computer and write for hours. So figuring out that why is very important, and that's the way to building a sustainable press or brand or whatever you want to do. And you do have to consider, do you have the skills? If you don't have the skills, do you have the time to learn the skills? Do you have the support around you that will encourage you when you're spending all these hours writing and learning and promoting yourself? It is a lot of work, but it also can be very fun. And again, I think that comes back to the why. If it really speaks to you, then this is not going to feel like work. It's going to be something that's really exciting and something that you feel like you must do, which is kind of why we started Dandelion Revolution Press. We felt like we had stories that we had to tell. And so even though we've been working for like 3 years, hours and hours and hours doing it, it's never really felt like work because we have our why. But I want you to believe in yourself and believe in your skills. And if you don't have the resources to do everything that we've talked about in this webinar, you can probably outsource some, or you can lean on some family and friends and community members to help out. Like we had a team here that helped with editing. We even had people outside of our DRP team help with editing. So we were able to lean on other people to assist us in the self-publishing process. And lastly, we are open for submissions. So if you feel like you want to be published, but maybe self-publishing and doing all of this right now is too much, then do consider submitting to us. We are open until March 8th. Yes, March 8th, International Women's Day is when our submissions close. So once again, we're putting out a print and ebook collection of short fiction featuring women in a leading role who find their own voice. So these stories should be highlighting women who refuse to remain silent, who speak up in rebellion, or who experience a rebirth of some kind. And the length is 1,000 words to 5,000 words. Again, you have a month. So if you feel like you have a story that fits this, or you have an idea that could fit this, definitely work on it and submit it to us. Our full submission guidelines are on our website. But we are super excited about our 3rd anthology, and we just feel like Again, these are stories that we want to put out in the world. And I will say we do publish authors of any background and any identity. So if you're not a woman and you feel like you can't submit to us, you can. We do a blind submission. So we will read the story that you submit. We'll give it the time that it deserves. And we're super excited to hear from you. So we will go into our Q&A session now. I will stop the recording so that we have a nice hour-long recording to send out to all of you. So feel free, we'll look through the chat and see any questions that you were asking throughout. And we'll also send an email soon whenever we finish the Q&A of our free self-publishing workbook and self-publishing checklist and a copy of our call for submissions as well. So you can check all that out, and hopefully, I know this is a lot of information, but hopefully you're able to leave feeling inspired and like you learned some things. So let me just